All right, so what's that?
Right, so we're live now. Yeah, we're live.
I'll let everyone know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait for you to record you.
Okay.
Do your intro to this camera, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. Anyone who believes in the planetary configurations, the fact that we have Mercury retrograde and we're in eclipse season, which means anyone who's had any problems with their tech, computers, laptops will empathize. So thank you so much for those of you who are still with us. There's been a lot of interest in this event. My name is Joy Francis. I am Executive Director of Words of Colour Productions, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to Fact Meets Fiction, the Windrush Generation, which we are here to celebrate. Tony Fairweather novel, 28 pounds, 10 shillings, a Windrush Story. And Tony is the founder and director of the Windrush Collection. And for those of you old enough to remember, The Right Thing. And the book is published by HopeRoad Publishing. So we're hosting this event in partnership with Libreria, the wonderful bookstore that we are live streaming from. And it's based in Shoreditch, so please come and visit. It's beautiful. There's got some amazing books here by a range of Black authors. And we're also joined by Veronica McKenzie, the award-winning filmmaker and documentarian who filmed Nine Nights. It's amazing, and it's also on
Amazon and Apple.
TV. So check it out.
Yeah.
So what can we say about 28 pounds 10 shillings? So basically, it's a brilliantly reimagined narrative in relation to the backstories of all those our ancestors, our relatives who were on the HMT Windrush, and it covers everything from God, gambling, sex, faith, and also it's incredibly timely with Windrush Day on the 22nd of June, and the fact that we've still got the ongoing Windrush scandal. So what I'm going to do is hand over to Veronica, who's going to be in conversation with Tony, and so we can hear more about the book from them directly. So I'll hand over to you, Veronica.
Thank you. So thank you, Joy, for inviting me to speak to the lovely Tony. And thank you, Tony, for agreeing to have a chat with me. And so now we only have an hour. So you have a long, illustrious career, lots of things before we get to the book. So I just want to highlight some of the stuff that you've done before, because I think that needs to be celebrated as well, because actually it's a pathway, really. You know, you've been involved in and around the literary scene for over 25, over 30, over 30 years. Born in South London, I believe. And you were, one of your first jobs, was it in The Voice in terms of media?
In the media,
yeah.
It was The Voice. I was in the book shop called Veronica Bookshop.
Yeah.
And I used to run the book section there, and someone from The Voice came in and said, "We love your selection of books. We've got a book club. It's not doing very well. Would you manage it?" So I did. And that was my step into media.
Wow. So have you always had a passion or a love of books? Did you read growing up?
I had a passion for books because I'm dyslexic.
Oh.
So I mixed up words. So it was a challenge for me, books. Every book was a challenge, but I still enjoyed it. It took me slightly longer than everybody else.
Oh, wow.
So we're running a bookshop, selling books. It's like meeting the demons, really.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm assuming that you were not diagnosed, or did you kind of find out?
No, I found out when I was pretty young.
Yeah.
Because when the teacher said, well, he answers the question when he put his hand up, but when he writes it down, it's all manually. Oh. And one of the advanced teachers took me to a specialist, and they said, yeah. My mum thought I needed an injection for it, but they got operate me. What's dyslexia? You need an injection. We have to operate.
It's like the flu.
So once they got around it, then, yeah, that's fine.
Brilliant.
I live with it. It's fine.
Yeah. And from there, Joy mentioned that you set up the right thing. So I know this was, we talking about late 80s, early 90s?
Yes, this is a book came my way called Disappearing Acts by Terry McMillan. She's unknown in the country. And it came across my desk when I was running the book club.
Yeah.
And I read it in one sitting. The first book ever, I just read it from cover to cover, non-stop. And I put it up the next week as book of the month. And if it doesn't like it, I will refund it. We have 4 refunds of 600.
Wow.
So when she came over, they said we'd like to meet. I said, hell, I wanted to come to Brixton and do it. His phone went quiet. Brixton was the trendy then. Brixton was driving through. You wind up, you not wind down. And there were a lot of negotiation.
Amazing.
And I put her on with a poet, Brendan, the young reporter, then Brendan Menace was the young reporter who interviewed her. We had a poet, comedian, and I made it an event.
Yes.
And I charged people.
Yes.
Which was
not,
And they were discussing with me, saying, what will turn up? Will be sold out. And there's people outside.
Wow.
And that was the kickstart from there. Everybody came knocking on my door.
I have to go through. And the reason why I have to revert to my paper, because I have to give the list of people that Tony has actually worked with. And we start with Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Mr. Michael Manley, Jamaica Prime Minister, Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, Dr. Maya Angelou, Terry McMillan, Iyanla Vanzant, Bernardine Evaristo, Alex Wheatley Holder, Mallory Blackman, Caution Newman, Octavia E. Butler, Nika Giovanni. And actually, I'm only halfway through. I think it's fair to say that you actually had a really big impact in terms of shaping the consumption of Black books and introducing new authors to people in the UK in the 90s. And I think I certainly remember when Iyanla Vanzant came, and it was so exciting because we've been watching Jerry Springer and all of that on TV and Iyanla Vanzant, and they seem really unattainable. And for them to be in the UK, and we can see that for the price of a ticket, it wasn't effective. I remember it was rammed, and it was a talking point. It was like, are you going to the United States? And that's when we first started to see big groups of Black, the community coming out for literary events, because it hadn't really happened before. You should be.
Book sales on. A lot of bookshops constantly say who you could bring in next to stock up on their books. That is a knock-on effect.
Amazing.
And we were bringing up young authors on the back side of them. Someone would open a show, someone would meet the artist afterwards. That would inspire them to move on. And Bernadine was one of those. She was a young pup. And she was doing poetry. And she used to hang with the big names. And be inspired and be inspired by
it is that thing of seeing what's possible. I think certainly when I was growing up, I always wanted to write, but it didn't seem possible. Writers were people that sat in these attics and were invariably white, or all had money, so it was very difficult. You then went on to found In Celebration of My Sisters, which was another cultural phenomenon. So tell me about how that came about. And again, I was in the audience. So I think I've been stalking you for the last 25 years. So tell me about that, because that genuinely, really, at one point where every Black woman of a certain age was going to that show. It was such a phenomenon. So tell me about how that came about.
When I was running the right thing, and International Women's Day came around, and I said to women in my office, "You're going to do something for International Women's Day?" And they said, "No, it's only for white women. They don't do anything including Black women. Are you gay?" And I said, "Well, why don't you do something?" They said, "Why don't you do something? You're the creative director." So I turned the envelope, and I wrote down all the things I like to see Black women do in one show. I still got it. And ballet, opera, this, that. And I wanted to change every 5 minutes. And I did try and get some sponsors to put the show together. People thought I was mad. They said, you can't put comedy on with Lovers Rock, you can't put Lovers Rock on with opera, you can't put opera on with ballet. And those were the days when you couldn't do that. Well, people weren't doing that. we booked, brave as I was, Brixton Academy
Oh, wow.
for the very first show.
Yeah.
The boys were running full-page ads as a favour for me. We sold, on the night, we sold about 400 tickets. The place holds 1,800 seats.
Yeah.
On the night, the box office man called me and said, what the hell's going on? I said, what? They said, look outside. There was a queue down the road and around the corner.
Oh, no, wow.
And I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And I went out there and said, why did you buy tickets in advance? They all said the same thing. We didn't think the show was going to happen. But now we're here. No one really knows when they see the show like that.
Yeah.
Until we put it on, it sold out in 2 weeks.
So
it sold out every year.
What year are we talking about? What was the beginning, the first year?
27 years ago.
Wow.
So it was
Do the maths. I think 95?
It's all like that. It's 27 years old.
Yeah, I think it's 95. 95 to, anyway, I'm sure somebody will correct me.
I get people who got children with mothers brought them, and they're bringing their children along.
Yeah.
Different generations.
Yeah.
And it still gives me joy to see a mother, great grandmother, and nieces and nephews building one queue, Libreria, just enjoying the show. And the show is a clean show, it's a family show. It's got a religious base to it, but also has a funny base to it.
Yes.
And as I said before, every 10 minutes it changes. We had an opera singer last in March. She just, you could hear a pin dropping.
Yeah.
People just, some people never heard an opera live. And this is what I call entertainment.
Yeah, and again, introducing, do you know what I mean, different cultural pursuits to people. You know, you wouldn't go and see an opera show on its own, but if it's 10 minutes kind of slotted in between comedy and something, then you can go, okay, let me, you know, you can go to the Louvre, or you can give it a go.
Yeah.
So being surrounded by all of these authors, you know, some of the best authors in the world, best authors, where did it inspire, I mean, had you been a writer when you were young, or were you inspired to write? So where did that kind of like genesis of an idea come for you to write your own book?
I never wanted to write a book. I didn't set out to write a book. I've taken notes. I've listened to stories told me from my elders. And it was a picture in Mr. Burton's house after his funeral. There's a black and white picture on the wall of this young, well-dressed young people looking at me on the ship. And I asked the family, who is that? And again, some of the people didn't know. And I often wondered what happened to those people. And it started sticking in my brain. This is before they arrived. Who's telling a story about before they arrived? And then I looked at the Windrush Story, which was Trinidad, Mexico, Jamaica, Bermuda, to London. And I thought, each stop, let's get some characters going. Let's their backstory before they go. I spoke to the elders, they were telling me that they had to sell pigs, goats, tools, whatever they could. People borrowing money to get someone to England. The money they make in England, they'll send it back. So those stories aren't being told. So, it's historical fiction. Of course, I've directed and stuff like that.
So what was the very first? So you sat down, on paper. How proud of a hand? Did you write by hand or did you
use the laptop?
And what was the first thing? Do you remember the first bit where you thought, okay, I'm going to do this?
I remember looking up the routes. That's the day I think I thought Trinidad. Let's start with Trinidad. I did Trinidad. First off, the first thing we wrote, first off of HMT Windrush. And I thought, I was thinking of character, and this name, maybe this came to me. It's like someone whispering in my ear, and I'm like thinking about this young girl waking up in the countryside. What would she do? So the first line is really just get off and get some water. You know?
To establish her kind of like country girl,
get the water, and then the little sister and she's trying to grab her sister.
Don't too much work. We're going to skirt rounds.
I wanted to let people know their background, how she gets to see the advert in the paper, and that she's a nurse, and that she's see the advert. I'm thinking, oh, smart, they're going, but mother's passed, father looking after the children, and he doesn't let her down.
So one of the things that I found really interesting about the book is that sense of excitement that this trip was happening. So there was like a buzz in the air all through the Caribbean that this trip was happening. All you had to do is raise X amount of money, and we know £28.10, and you could have a new life. And it's really interesting how people found out about, some of them were quite deliberately wanting to leave. Some of them in the book, we find that they have other reasons for wanting to leave, which we won't go into, but it's very interesting. But the idea of, for that sum of money, you're going to go to the motherland and your life is going to be, you're going to change your life. And you really, in the book, you really capture that sense of excitement, that sense of, this ship is sailing, on this day at this time, and I want to be on that ship. And I think for a lot of us, we don't think about the Windrush generation as young people, because we think of them always, when they've been here for a few years and with all the negativity and everything that some of them have gone through. But that sense of excitement of a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old or 20 that you're going to, you really captured it in the book.
Thank you.
And I love, the diversity of characters. So you mentioned how Mavis came to you. What about Lucretia? Lucretia. Yeah.
She's a funny one.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah. I didn't write in the morning, so I'm like about 5 in the morning. I write.
Yeah.
But the bulk of this book was written in Tobago. I stayed at a friend's house. They had a veranda, and I had my laptop.
Let's rewind. You're in Tobago.
Tobago holiday.
On holiday. Right, yeah.
I took my laptop and I started writing. And these characters, I don't want to say this to anybody because I don't want to frighten anybody, but these characters started to visit me. They literally were talking to me. And I could see them, and my hand just kept going.
Did that freak you out?
I tuned in. I thought, yeah, all right, come. I'm a brave man. You want me to write this story?
Yes.
You have to write this story. I've always said, I didn't write this story.
Yeah.
They wrote the story. My hands moved like the keyboard. And each character was with me.
Yeah.
Each character had an argument with me. Especially Chef. He didn't like what I put in his character. And I had to scrap 2 pages because I actually had him in a dream that he said to me, you're not listening to me.
Oh my God. Yes. And then, so Chef is a character, I'm not going to let you give anything away, but Chef is a character who ends up on the boat after a challenge. So let's not give anything away because it's so much richness and joy in the character and how they get on the boat.
So different stories.
So many different stories of getting on the boat. And one of the interesting...
Just sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just check that your mic is actually on.
Oh, yes. Apply it. One of the interesting things for me is the diversity of people on the boat. Not only do they come from different countries, but they're from different socio-economic backgrounds. And then you had the black soldiers, and then you had the white soldiers. So you had all of these people in one space trying to navigate. And it's really interesting how you could highlight certain stories, for example. Tell us a little bit about the black soldiers, because that's something that we don't really hear about.
My father, my uncle, and others that I knew were in the army. And you hear the stories when you're young, let's say big people talk and come out the room. You hear some of it come out, and the way they were treated after the war, the way they were treated in the war. And I just thought it's nice to introduce that story in there because when I talk about our heroes and the people who fought in World War I and II, well, it's talk about World War II, but blacks were in the First World War II. And I wanted to show their disappointment with the way they were treated after the war. And the way they were just literally cast aside. So you've got these ex-servicemen in there who voice their opinion very loudly, and after they don't take no crap from anybody. They're out. They're for they've done their duty. And I wanted to show that.
Lovely. And also you show a little bit about interracial, those kind of first relationships. When I say first, I mean with some of the people mingling and finding out about each other and different cultures. So it's quite comical the way you have the clash of cultures, and it's expressed through food, through music, through physicality. Tell me about how you kind of position that, because it's quite funny.
Well, the real ship had Polish people on it. So
Yeah.
Mexican, a sort of different nationalities on that ship. And I wanted to show that how we can all intermingle and have fun with each other's culture, but still respect each other's culture. And I do love the children in the book who find white people amusing.
Yes.
Because they take a potato and then mash it up.
Yeah.
They can't understand why they put a toad in the hole.
Yeah.
Why eat a toad in the first place? So the little thing like that, up to everybody, why are the windows round in the ship? No one can answer them. Why are the windows round in the ship? And why can't I see land anymore? I always see land.
All those questions
were coming out from these young people, and they brought amusement into it and made me think about all these things. But the mixing of the black and white thing, I was told by an elder that there was mixing. I was told by an elder that on one of the ships that came, a lot of ships came from the Windrush. The Windrush, as you know, was the propaganda ship. That one was filmed and shown around the world. Many ships came after. And they said there was interaction between white soldiers and black women and vice versa.
And when we say mixing, that's a euphemism. Because there's plenty of mixing and fun happening on the ship. So you just imagine you've got like 1,000, mostly young people, free at home for the first time, going on this adventure, nobody knows them. So it's not as if sometimes when you're going up a small area, they know your mum, they know your this, they know you're that, you're free, the drinks are flowing, I understand that the drinks are flowing, and it's an every night occurrence that we had
I didn't realise that when the ships went to the docks, the real ship, the government gave them a barrel of rum.
Amazing.
So they had a lot of drinks, in about 2 weeks, so there's a lot of drinks for and there was partying every night, there was music every night, there was gambling on the real ship, there was gambling, partying, etc. going on. And it's on all different levels because they were big, very big ships.
So I think, should we have an extract from you? Are you ready to read a little?
Okay, this will be my first reading ever in public.
We are honoured to have you.
Okay. This is the morning when Nora has meetings, and this is the time she asks people to come and meet and network and talk about how they can help each other. Do you think anyone will show up? Well, we are here, so let's see. Norma, Betty, Lucretia, and Doris were sitting in the same spot on the deck where they had met the others the previous morning. Here they come, said Betty. Good morning, all. Did you have a good night's sleep? Yes, we did. I hear them catch the stowaway. Yes, they here got up a good fight. You did know? No. I saw when they were dragging him down the hallway, he was cussing some bad words. Well, you should have paid like the rest of us, Norma said. One of the men said, Sister, the man was trying to get a better life in the mother country. So am I, she said. But I still have to pay for my ticket. My family, like a lot of people here, had to sacrifice many things to get on this ship. Don't be so hard, the man was not doing anyone any harm. We're all from the same place. Well, I worked hard to be here. And then the conversation became a free-for-all. There was a big difference of opinion about whether the man should be arrested at one point. The arms were going, the voices got loud, the sucking of the teeth became a choir, and while this was happening in full view of everyone on the deck, a reporter was watching, standing just out of sight. You could hear everything that was said. Sometimes you could not understand what they were saying because of their broad accent, but you got the gist of the discussion. Just as the talk was dying down, the reporter walked over to the group of about 15 people and said, Hello. Everyone stopped talking. By now, most of the passengers knew he was a reporter from the Daily Express and that he was doing a story about the people on the board ship. Word got around. People had heard that some English people had bad feelings about West Indians coming to the England, and this was making them nervous.
The reporter said, "Can I have an interview with anyone who wishes to express their thoughts and feeling about coming to England?" There was silence. "I only want to show the English people the other side of the coin. I know you don't trust me. Other newspapers are writing about stories about you and your ship, and the government are debating you right now in London. So why not put your side of the story?" A man came out of the crowd. "Why do English people hate us so much?" Everybody looked around. The voice was coming from Chef. "I read in the Gleaner newspaper about how your people and your government, and you don't want us here. It's you and your king invite us. It's you who set the ship for us. It was our people who fought and died in the white man's war, alongside your English people." "Yes," said another woman. "Many of our men and women give their lives in the war. Where is the gratitude? Where is the thank you?" The reporter was writing as fast as he could. "You don't feel the British government has shown the gratitude to the West Indian soldiers who were lost in the war," he said. "No respect, man, no respect," the voice came. "Your country is broke. You don't have enough people to man your buses, your houses, your building sites. We are part of your empire, and we have no choice. When you took our minerals and you took our many slaves from our island, what have you got back? Do you feel England has raped your islands?" "You see," said Norma in a loud voice, stepping forward toward the reporter, "this is the headline we're looking for. This is why no one can take us out why does it make us out to be bad people when we've been the victim of your brutal empire for over 400 years. Norma turned to the group of people and said, "My brother is this. He's just putting words in your mouth for a good headline. You coming?" She looked at Doris, Betty, and Vicky, who had gone out and walked away, followed by the rest of the group. "I only want your side of the story," the reporter said. One man looked around at him and said, "Devil man." Before he could say bye-bye, all the group had melted away, but he had his story.
Thank you. And it really, like, you really get the sense that these people on the ship are full of optimism because, like you pointed out, they've been invited. You know, my dad tells a story about Enoch Powell going to Jamaica, Kingston, and standing in Kingston Square and appealing to people to come to England. Enoch Powell, who later on is associated. So then there's a contrast. Do you know what I mean? Like, we know that these people are you know, very excited, very optimistic, but we also are back in England. You know, the black shirts, you know, the fascists are stirring up trouble. Fights are breaking out. You know, like you said, it was debated in Parliament. You know, so it's kind of, you know, you kind of get a sense that all is not well, and obviously we know what happened to the people when they came. What do you feel when you were writing about where to end the stories? I won't give away the ending, but just in terms of, we know what happened after they came.
Well, when I started the book, I always wanted to end the book when the ship came in at Tilbury Docks. That was always, before I even knew where the story was going, I always wanted to end them coming off the book. That's all. Everybody knows the story. Right? And so let's tell the backstory. It's not until I wrote the end of it, and the character was travelling out of Tilbury Docks, not giving too much away with a tear in her eye, and looking at London, with his work pavement club. There's bomb sites everywhere. Look, this is after the war, and things were hard in England, but they were harder in the Caribbean because so many people were coming over. And I thought that's where to end it. Part 2 will pick up with another story in another book. But this particular book, I think, ends just right. Just driving out of Tilbury.
Yeah, but that's not the actual ending. So in terms of your own background, obviously your parents, when did they come over? Were they part of the Windrush Generation?
The army in the war. So we go back and then come back in and etc.
And that's the story that's not often told. That people were here before the Windrush. So 1948 was the Windrush, but people have been coming backwards and forwards.
And big shows before 1940.
Beforehand,
One had 475, one had 265 people coming over. They were not filmed. They just, one with the banana boat. Saying, get up on the banana boat. Kids used to say that to me when I was at school.
Oh, wow.
the binocular used to ship people over.
Yeah. So do you think it was because of the number of people that raised concern, in the UK, because it was so many people?
The government were, I've researched this, and the government were looking at the bigger picture. There were a lot of men in the war.
Yeah.
And factories and things need to be manned.
Yeah.
Even though women were running it, running so successfully, that sexist view that women must stay at home. And the country could have carried on with women running it.
Yeah.
But it would be a different society.
Yeah. And they didn't want
domination came in, and they tried to recruit people from their empire.
Yeah.
And so, once again, they wanted to use our labour. They used it before the slogan, now they want to use it again. And they brought us in, and they put us to work, just like they did before.
Yeah.
And that is really the simplistic way of saying they didn't want us here. They just wanted what we can have, what we can give.
Yeah. So basically, they wanted for a particular length of time.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. And then you
they said, so we gave them after 5 years. We replaced the men when we were wounded to work. So
that worked out well.
Yeah, didn't it? And this is why I just said to them, Mum, why is there a suitcase on top of the wardrobe? And the father was always going back in 5 years.
Yeah.
And every house I went to, the suitcase is on top of the wardrobe.
Yes, I never actually thought that's what it was, but right.
They were saving the things back, even though they also put in the trunk.
So just in terms of themes, I've made some more notes. So one of the things that really was that one of your characters is the conscious voice of the story. I'm talking about Norma.
Okay.
And she's a very kind of straight up and down, conservative woman with very strong morals and a very strong sense of the world, what is right and what's wrong. And she is through her eyes, you see the hopes and dreams, and but she's very much about fitting in, doing the right thing, and not kind of raising any, not disturbing anything too much, being very conservative. What was it like to write her as a character? Because she's very particular in a way.
I thought of, I wanted to be a woman because there's always male sexual characters. And in my household, women ruled it. So I just wanted that female lead. And the name, it just came to me again. It's a name I'm not familiar with, but it just came to me, the name Norma. It's Noreen to start with, then Norma. And then I thought, yes, I know two aunts, I call them aunties, I call them Norma. So their middle name was Norma. And I wanted someone who was that more upbringing that you get in the Caribbean. Very strict. Go to church, wear your gloves, read the Bible. Very strict upbringing, and she was the product of that. And I wanted their friends who were the opposite, the Creature. Completely opposite. And so this union is long and hard, so it's both sides of the situation. Like the classic situation when the captain came over to the table. I would leave in the room, he did a walkabout, he'd leave in the room, and the captain's about to leave the room, and Lucretia got up and said, "You're not coming over here." So the captain came to the table, and she was about to tell him how nasty his food English. And Norma just stepping quickly and said, "No, the business," she said, "the food is nasty. You know that, but you don't tell the captain that." So I wanted the situation to see both sides. There's a lot of situations where you get her, the Creature's view, and Norma's view. When you see that, you get to see where I'm going with it.
You very much get the sense of, here's somebody who's saying what we want to say. When she's out there saying everything, we're kind of like, we step back and go, she's a little bit wild, she's a little bit, I think in the book she comes across as a little bit, what's the word? She's a bit rough around the edges.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, she's a bit rough.
Country girl.
She's a bit rough. And the class element is actually very interesting in the book as well. I mean, we've got a very strong contrast between the country girls. We have a politician's daughter, and was very straight-laced. And I think a lot of time, I mean, class is spoken about a lot in terms of the Caribbean, but a lot of focus is more on racism. what was it like trying to kind of imagine the different classes in the same kind of space?
Well, I used to enjoy watching people come to Cambridge Road where I lived, because certain aunties and certain things were very speaky. You know, and they really English and English. And then some came and they were just country. You know, lockdowns, and you can see the contrast. I wanted that to come over with us, because that's what the boat was full of. There's country people and city people all traveling together. But at the level is when they got here, and suddenly we're looking on that's the only jobs they're offered. That's the jobs that were offered to professors, doctors, and all those. I was doctor,
work on the buses and be grateful for it.
So he was working alongside to clean his car.
So in terms of, I don't want to give anything more away about the book. I think you've had enough. I want you to buy the book, because I think it's actually, not only is it funny and joyful, and there are so many bits. I didn't know that. It's informative, the level of detail. Because I think, as I mentioned to you, I'm so into history, and I was just like really happy to the level of detail that you kind of explained, which you say came from the ancestors, and I'm inclined to believe you, because this story needed to be told. So are you going to do another extract, or is it just the one that we're going to? Just the one.
That's what I've been realizing.
I know, right? That's all you're going to get. That's all you're going to get, isn't it? Right. So I'm not going to give anything more back.
It's the first time I've tried.
You did well.
I've never had to do that. I'm usually going to have behind the scenes. I'm going to be behind the camera right now. That's my normal job.
So actually, I would like to talk about the Windrush. I mean, there are so many things at the Sky Science, amazing, charitable stuff. But the Windrush collection, because obviously the Windrush has been in the news because of the disgraceful way that people have been treated, including the documentary that unearthed the fact that the government deliberately threw away everybody's records.
That's right.
Fantastic documentary by David Olugosu, I think. So tell me about your Windrush collection and what's in it. And,
okay, that started 4 years ago when Croydon asked me to do something for Windrush Day. And we thinking this is but more than that. How we explore our heritage, our culture, the more than just jump up. And that's a lovely really. There's a time and a place for everything. And they said, all right, what have you got in mind? I said, what about our culture, where we live? They said, well, it's based in the museum if you want to use that. I didn't know there was a museum in Croydon. I've lived there for that time.
Wow.
So we, I went to my mum, I went to some people, and I said, can I learn this and I learned that? And I put together a very basic front row, and the Jamaican Nursing Association gave us one of the original uniforms, and some of the hot coat. It started to come together in one glass. It was very small, but it was the highest attended event they had that year. More schools and black people came to the museum than they had in the last 3 years.
Wow.
And that shows the hunger for it. And I had to sit there and just sit in the corner and just watch people come. Tell them, your grandma had that, or your so-and-so had that. You know what that's for? That's a wireless. It's called a wireless. You know? And then I'm watching the kids pick up the phone. It brought joy to me to see that, and then again I was taking and explain to people, do you know why there was fishes in black people's homes? We always go quiet.
I don't know. I was surrounded by fishes.
It's Christianity.
Really? Glass fishes.
Fish. You know, people with badges now.
Yeah.
They're Christian. And there's a lot of preference in the Bible for those fishermen. So that's why fish it became a fashion statement. Fish started as a Christian thing, but my fish is bigger than your fish, and became a entertainment piece. It was big up with the crochet around them.
Yeah, I couldn't leave for crochet in my mum's house. It's like everywhere, crochet fishes.
And the thing that was smiling,
I love it.
I was getting exhibition in Croydon, and as it was there for It was meant to be there for 2 weeks. It was there for 3 months. And it came out at the end of Black History Month. And I spoke to my removal men, and they said to me, "You see anything in moving it?" And I get all these phone calls. Listen, they find out this, they find out that. Quick, can you get down there? And I managed to salvage a lot of things out of skiffs. And I thought, right, let me save this. And I started to store it. And I thought, I'm going to put on my own front room because now the exhibition was over. Everything went back, and I'm going to build up my own one. And then more and more calls came, and I salvaging that. Too late, and I saw some beautiful. I saw this to this day. It's smashed up into pieces in this. You never see like that one again. And I put them in the room with the carpet, the centerpiece, the glass cabinet, the bar, the plastic pineapple, the blue spot gram, the Jim Reed record lean up at the time. It's like we was at St. James's Place, part of the Black Heroes Gallery. And we were happy, and 2 men who came, 2 different days. One man came and he sat there, and I said, "You're right." He said, "Try." He said, "I grew up in this. I just need to take it in." My mum passed just a month ago, I think. And this has brought me right back. And he's on the phone, and he's on the phone to Jamaica. And he's got his phone out there showing them. I thought, this is what this is about. It's bringing that era back. And seeing elders bringing the young people and explaining to them. And the interaction between the two, and talking to the school kids, hard actually, traveling down here. And I said, I've explained to them what trusting was. You know, that table there, that might have taken them a year to buy that table. They bought trust maybe 2 and 6 a week. They had trust. And they explained what trust was. Now that worked. And the partner system. So when these people pass, you've got to throw them in the skin. You don't realise how much blood, sweat, and tears went into buying those objects. And their pride and joy. And the same question was being, why was the front was locked? I said, because that was the only place they had where their children could rock it, because we were running around the house. But that was their that showed them what they've accomplished. When their friends come, they can say, "Look what I've done." But they used to stand behind his bar, serving out drinks. Mum used to come with her teeth straight. They needed to get a finger up. But every house we went to, they did the same. They had the crochet, they had the
plastic on the sofa. Maybe the plastic on the sofa.
You try to sit and it was a loud wallpaper and a loud carpet. It was brilliant.
What that represents is a very specific time in our culture where there was a certain level of certainty. You know, the world seems so much more understandable that I think people really knew their place in a way, not in a negative way, but where you had, you knew that the families, everyone around you was living in the same way if you were part of the community, and you knew you were part of the community. You know, when I used to live in Tottenham, my dad used to work on the bus, and I didn't even have to know that my dad, where he was, because I knew the neighbours were watching me. You know what I mean? So even though he wasn't there, I know that even if we did something wrong, the neighbours would tell. You did this, I saw you there, so you did everything. But you felt like you were part of the community. How would you, because obviously I want everyone to read the book, especially young people. I think there's a lot of work around intergenerational kind of conversations to be had. How would you like to see the book used in terms of fostering that?
There's a lot of requests for schools, colleges to come and talk about it, which is really nice. And I'd like it to be a tool to show that the old lady you see there, 80, 90 years old, was a young person when she came, and they were pioneers. And they didn't walk into a room where they had a flat screen and more gadgets and send a rocket to the moon in their bedroom. They came with a grip and a piece of paper with a dress on it, and they build their life. And you're now the benefit of that. Your generation is going to be the second generation to inherit something. They had to make that inheritance. They had to make that wealth. And I hope that they see elders in a different light when they see them walking down the road and give them a bit more respect. And I hope that more research goes into all the other ships that came and then the Boeing the airplane started coming over, the people in the BOAC and all those ones. There's a whole migration story that's not been touched on and not being told. And I hope this book becomes a Caribbean roots. Because I delve into slavery in the book when you read it more, and bring it up to its relevance on today. And then going forward with this book and maybe the next book, you'll see where that comes out the other end.
So there is a book two.
Oh, there's definitely a book two.
So
Absolutely.
the spirits are being channeled. So events. So I understand there's a launch happening.
There's a
private launch
on May the 15th. But I'm doing many events throughout June. At the Black Cultural Archives, my Windrush collection is going in there from the 22nd to the 10th of September. And it's a week at the Bernie Grant Centre on the 20th to the 26th. I'm doing reading at both those exhibitions. And I'm at the Brixton Library on the 16th
of
June. It's all in June. But we weren't ragged in June. But if you go onto World of Colour website, they'll be on there. I'll go to HopeRoad Publishing website and the information will be on there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think we're out of time. It's been such a joy speaking to you. And I, for one, just love the work that you've done, the people that you've brought to life, and reflecting my own history.
Thank you.
You know, and I think it's a real must for everyone to read. And not only Black people, it's a real must for everyone to understand the Windrush generation and what they did to come here and survive. You know, it's a migrant's journey. You know, and it's really relatable to a lot of people. So,
and I like to insert by saying, big up really to Rosemary Hudson, my publisher, HopeRoad Publishing, because there's a story of migration straight away. She's come here, she's set up a publishing house, and she's looking after people who don't normally get a look in. I called it to her first. I said, if you don't like it, I'll go mainstream. But I want to go to the Black publishing house. I want to try and recycle our own money. And she loved it. And I said, don't be honest. She said, no, I really read words. I love the story. And it's a story that no one's telling. That's what she loved it. And she's done a fantastic job with the illustrators and the book.
Hold it up.
The book
Beautiful.
It's really great. And we've got a map on the side of the where to. And I'm just so honoured to be at HopeRoad Publishing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you to Words of Colour for putting us together in conversation. And thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Joy.
And I will be stalking you continually. I'm just going to carry on, right? It's been 25 years or so why stop now? And I'm sure we're going to speak again soon. Thank you very much. So,
Thank you very much for the interview.
This is what they do.
Is that right?
Oh, God.
Wow. So how many people have you been? I see it's busy.
No, I've just been building, troubleshooting, upstairs.